Doesn't speak well for blue.
this. I'm going to turn on this. And you guys want to talk?
Yeah, hello?
I always want to talk.
Perfect.
Part of my job.
Perfect, perfect. And now you guys got the game up, full screen?
Yeah, but it's not showing.
Yeah, it's not showing,
Because
but
you're
it
not
will
on that.
now.
Hey, exciting.
Oh, don't touch that. Got it.
So what
Landing
Yes, land acknowledgement. And then we'll introduce ourselves, and then I'll describe the game. What's the frame rate like? Okay, cool. Okay, so let's see. I can't touch that at the same time. Okay. Well, welcome to Lunch Zone from the Digital Games Lab, SideQuest in the Anthropology Department. We acknowledge in Milwaukee that we are on traditional Potawatomi, Ho-Chunk, and Menominee homeland along the southwest shores of Michigami, North America's largest system of freshwater lakes, where the Milwaukee, Menominee, and Knickknick rivers meet, and the people of Wisconsin's sovereign Anishinaabe, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Oneida, and Mohican nations remain present. I'm joined today, IRL, by 3 colleagues from UWM. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
my name is Nathan Humpel, and I'm a data librarian here at Wisconsin Milwaukee.
And I am Thomas Malaby. I'm a professor of anthropology here at the University of Milwaukee.
And I'm Ati. I am a PhD student in anthropology.
Okay, perfect. So today, to start off our mini 3-week series of games, we're going to be playing Puzzle Agent, which is a Telltale Games puzzle game in which you play an FBI agent from the Department of Puzzles who has been sent out to the kind of the hinterlands of the far American North in order to solve a puzzle crime. So without further ado, I'm just going to hit play game.
Modern grasp person aesthetic, you know, somebody who was proto-engineer, you know, graphic.
I chose this game really because I really enjoyed this game when I played it. It's quite casual, and just because it would be low tech for our first streaming session, and also puzzles are something we can all solve together.
Well, it's interesting. I tried to show at some point where I wanted to sort of collaborate. Collaborate is interesting. I talk about yeah. This is an older game. And Telltale was doing episodic games for quite a lot of episodic games. And this was one of them that didn't quite catch on. And this is the only episode of this one. But it does have kind of a cult following, I would say. There's a lot of people that do enjoy it.
do we think that there's something challenging about designing a game based on puzzles? And the reason I ask that is that to me, puzzles and games aren't quite right because a puzzle has a set solution typically, right, which you are trying to arrive at.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you're trying to put the pieces back together, if you will. So do we think there's anything challenging about making a computer game out of that if a computer game is supposed to demand kind of formative challenge? If the performative challenge is just solving a sequence of puzzles, does that mean that it's not really a computer game? It's just a sequence of
It's
puzzles?
computer mediated
Right.
game, possible.
Puzzle solving. Yeah.
It's not about having that experience of a digital game. Another way of or remediate.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of puzzle games, and I think you could definitely. I mean, Portal is described as a puzzle game,
Right.
and that integrated its narrative very well into the puzzle. I mean, somewhat ironically, in terms of like Gladys having to being compelled to test. But I think, and this one I think is kind of a similar thing where you have this sort of ironic idea of this like puzzle solving agency of the FBI as if that was, it's automatically acknowledging that that's a sort of ridiculous idea. But I think that the challenge comes in if you're trying to integrate those puzzles in a way that seems more
puzzle
realistic.
research. This is Agent Tethers.
Um,
I think you have the wrong
but
number.
I think most games are comfortable with
I
having
see.
the puzzles
An assignment. In the
almost
field?
be not natural to the world
No,
that
sir,
they're in.
Right.
It's just
kind of like a
it's
set
been
piece. Kind of
yes,
like a
quite some
separate-
time.
In fact, I think the
Uh-huh.
Portal example is an
Erasers?
interesting one
The
because
foundation of
I
democracy.
think in
Oh,
what we've
absolutely,
said so
sir.
far, we
I
almost
agree,
have
sir.
three things on
Oh
the
yes,
table.
the White
We're
House
talking
needs
about
its erasers,
puzzle-related.
sir.
Mhm.
I'll
There's
be
the
on the
puzzle solving
next
itself.
plane to.
There's narrative
Wait,
for the story.
where?
And I would say Portal illustrates something that is neither of those, which is something I associate with the game, which is the performance of the act live, right? And the reason why I say that is that many of the puzzles you solve in Portal don't require any timing or exact targeting or those kinds of performative execution, but a lot of them do,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, yeah.
So a lot of them involve things that aren't, strictly speaking, dragging pieces around or what we do in a solve a crossword puzzle, right? Crossword puzzle isn't built, its engagement isn't built on the idea that I might write the wrong letter in a space, right? And trouble executing. There's not a challenge to the execution of gameplay the way there is in sports or in firing your portal guns or jumping through things.
Well, that's an interesting distinction to try to draw between that
Just
engagement
arrived in
that you're talking
Scoggins,
about
Minnesota.
gameplay versus puzzles.
Population
And I think
754. Temperature.
it would be very interesting to try to tease
It's
out
cold
the two of those.
and not much to look at. According
in
to the
something
agency,
like
there's some kind of
how you're
Insi-
engaging with the game.
thing going on at the local eraser factory. The
in,
whole plant is shut
say-
down. There's a weird man staring at
Well,
me.
even anything
Hopefully
like
this
Zelda,
won't be a big waste of
or
time.
anything that has what are traditionally described as puzzles.
Agent Tethers out.
Placing something in the right spot. So that you can move around or
I
whatever.
have no idea
mazes,
where my
that
hotel
type of
is.
thing.
I'd have to ask for
Lego
directions.
games have that stuff.
Yeah. Because the
Excuse me, I'm Nelson
there has to
Tethers
be
with
some
the FBI's
signifier in the
Department
game,
of Puzzle
however
Research.
subtle, that you are now entering a puzzle.
Hello?
Like this.
Okay.
Now
and
you need to think
are?
about the layout of
Bjorn?
wherever you are.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Bjorn.
And get into the headspace of the puzzle
Boy,
solving
those
as opposed
snowmobiles
to
sure are a bumpy ride, eh?
Twitch game, something like that.
Right.
To navigate those two spaces, I think is an interesting it needs to be done well, otherwise the user gets very confused.
Right. Feels clunky and disagreeing.
Mhm.
Can you give me directions to
liking
the nearest
the look of the
hotel?
game.
I'm having a little trouble finding my way around.
You'd never get there. Roads are too slick.
Sir, I am an agent of the FBI's Puzzle Research Division. It
Sir,
can't be
I'm an
harder than
agent
the
of the
puzzles I
FBI's
see
Puzzle
every
Research.
day.
Not
Be
so.
hard.
It's really just a matter of trajection.
The other kind of
Okay,
question
on the
that I
way
was
to
sort
the
of going by
hotel,
as we were
you're
talking.
going to pass 2 traffic
Does
lights.
this game have another kind of game-like challenge, which is look at a landscape and what are you going to do? Are you going to talk to this person? Are you going to look at inspect that doorway? You're going to pick up that piece of paper. If it has some of that, that's also stuff that I would call not puzzle element so much as gameplay.
Yes.
That's interesting because I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with that, because I think, those elements are the cornerstone of traditional computer adventure game. You have a couple different things in there. You have maybe what you would describe as traditional puzzles, inventory puzzles,
Right.
or you get into a room and you're like, how do I make this contract? And either you have the ingredients for that or you don't. And if you don't, you need to go find them and come back. But there's also, say, maybe what I would describe as dialogue puzzles,
Yeah.
where you need to try to negotiate getting information out of somebody by clicking on the right dialogue. Um,
But see, I'm just going to jump in. I'm going to say I think it's going to be really easy for us to apply the label puzzle
mhm,
to a bunch of different kinds of challenges.
mhm.
Whereas I think puzzle breaks down as a label for things where there are multiple paths to solution, or where there's not an exact preset.
Each.
Sure.
You're farthest.
Yeah.
I was told I would get a chair as a
Could you say your
So-
working definition
so-
again?
I feel like if we start apply these terms and try and make them useful, right? It's tempting from a certain angle to look at a lot of the different challenges someone computer game as just puzzles of different. There's a dialogue puzzle. There's a kind of interact with the environment puzzle, and then there's the put the pieces of paper together puzzle like we saw before, right? But I think that starts to eliminate what might be a useful distinction between what I think puzzle usually means, or tends to signal, which is there's a set solution. There's not a lot of uncertainty about finding the information for that solution or executing the act of making it happen or making the right social guesswork about what's really going on behind this or that. You just have all the available information and the set solution are all very explicit, and there's not a lot of wiggle room or multiple paths or that's just, I don't know. It seems like that's a useful at least that's marked by our label of what puzzles are versus game.
Yeah, well, I think there's hybrid puzzles then too, as we were talking about with Portal, where you figure out the solution. And this can get somewhat
I must
frustrating,
have
where you
gotten
think you
lost.
can
I thought
figure
your
out the
directions
solution,
were taking me to the hotel.
and then
They did.
you try it, but either
I'm
you're
standing in
not
front of the
able
hotel,
to
aren't I?
execute a
Yeah.
portion of the
Thanks a lot.
gameplay well
Okay.
enough that you think the solution is going. You're going to get to the solution, so you're not jumping high enough, or
Right.
you're not
Timing
shooting,
things,
yeah,
right.
timing
I'm here to
something.
investigate
And then
an
the
incident at
frustration
the
in
Scoggins Eraser
those
Factory.
comes
Do you
where
know anything
you
about
have these two
No.
types of approaches, and
The hotel's
they may
going
not
to
be
close soon.
correct.
Never
Either
check
you
in
are
if you're
not,
sticking
either you
around.
are trying to do the wrong thing,
Right.
or you have the right solution, but you can't execute it correctly by skill. And then there's the other problem of
Discovered a
like you
fence.
can't execute that
Boards
correctly
out, shoot
because you
up
don't
something
have the right
terrible.
equipment.
Could be
Right.
the
You
work
need to
of
get that,
strays
you
trying
know,
to get to the
at some
dumpster
Right.
point.
Your performative, you had a performative misread made
Yeah.
don't know why I'm
Not
recording
only what the solution is, but what you need.
Mm-hmm.
What needs to have been done beforehand. Right. A
Mhm.
lot of that. I guess all I'm saying is like I think puzzle tends to mark a more narrow or restricted kind of gameplay, which is
Mm.
what I took you to be saying before. Like it's jarring when a game, the games need to attend to the transition. Much more open-ended gameplay, puzzle play.
Mm.
Excuse me,
Solve
you
this
look
puzzle.
perplexed.
As you were talking,
Puzzles.
go
It
ahead.
does
So many
the portal
puzzles.
effect, doesn't it?
Puzzles?
I mean,
I might
puzzle
be able
can
to
be
help you with
just a
that.
Right.
maybe
Maybe
something
that's
that drives the game.
Yeah.
right. It's one mechanic among several.
Instead of like a being the genre of game,
Yeah.
might be something that drives the game that moves you forward
Yeah.
to tell a story.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I don't remember the name of the game. Uh, it's a game in the sand environment. Literally, there's no talk. There's like some type of communication, and I'm kind of
Journey.
yes, journey.
Yeah.
And it has puzzles in it, but
Mhm.
you don't necessarily know what the puzzles are
Yeah.
Mhm.
until like I think you play for a second or third time.
Yeah.
But you do things,
Yeah.
connect two items or like two places, and it's still fun. It's still like it still feels like a game.
Hmm.
I don't think puzzle is the thing.
Well, there was another little wrinkle that I was thinking of. Um,
I like this puzzle.
the idea that and this is something I find fascinating about games is the vocabulary of gamers, let's say, to be able to enter a game and really not need a tutorial to know the conventions of the game. And that leads to situations where you really don't like exactly what to do with this block pushing puzzle because you've seen this type of puzzle a million times.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily and so those are the types of puzzles that may need a twitch element or some sort of element, a different mechanic to become a challenge. Otherwise it just becomes too easy. Although, at the same time, narrative games may rely on those puzzles that are fairly straightforward in order to tell a story within an interactive environment, even if the puzzles are somewhat unobtrusive. And they may want to do that because the story is really the important,
Right.
not necessarily the challenge of puzzles.
Right. The extent to which puzzles are framed,
Yeah.
whether there's kind of key switching or whatever you call it, has to do with what the person designing the game wants to accomplish. So that wasn't the right solution.
No, because there's the elastic band. So these are tapeworms in the stomach, but there's an elastic band in here as well that is set after I failed the first time, and so it has to be a continuous loop.
Let's see.
Oh, wow. Where is the elastic band? I mean, I see part of it, but then I don't know how you fix it. I've seen you twist that one. Aha. Did it. Just had it a second.
Yeah. It was the
There, I
Yeah.
think
And
that's
what's
it.
going on here?
Oh, yeah.
well, you have to connect it to the upper one,
Oh, yeah.
and you have to just switch that.
So, just to be clear, you cannot move the. Oh, maybe change the worm on the bottom.
Yeah, that's what I'm
This one.
Yeah.
connect that. Oh no, that's
Is somebody else?
Used up my puzzle.
I can give it a try. Entering in the middle of a puzzle.
I actually kind of like how this setup gives us both the main player's camera and the conversation camera. I think no, we're all backlit.
yeah. If we just like put the blank that backlit though,
just for space. I'm not streaming either camera actually, but something to build on in the future. I
Yeah.
think.
Oh, you're not streaming the.
I have a cam at home. I could bring in.
Yeah, of course. This is a good setup to build on. We got the production basics down,
Yeah.
and the voice sound levels are okay actually.
Well, that's
I
good.
think good going
That's
through.
good.
Just as long as we remember to talk into the mic.
Into the mic. I'm always sitting far back.
Oh,
Probably has this problem too.
it's a tall piece.
So I'm kind of fascinated by how challenging this looks to be.
Yeah, it's a tapeworm twister for sure.
Let's see, so there is a. I see the setup now. Didn't see.
So, yeah, there's just an elastic band hidden amongst the tapeworm.
Do tapeworms ever have two heads? Yeah.
Well, apparently not.
Oh, you tried?
Well, I mean,
that's where we're at.
Yeah, right.
But I was listening to your discussion, and it's interesting then to think about how puzzles work together with the world in which the FBI has puzzles department, in which every time you fail or accomplish a puzzle, it ranks up to $10 spent. You know, so hidden within this puzzle is a certain kind of polemic as well about, what is a puzzle? Why do institutions sponsor people to solve puzzles? You know.
Right. In fact, I'm sure somebody has written in policy kind of land stuff about using puzzle rewards in public policy for like the game of, $10 million reward for someone who can solve this jet propulsion problem.
Oh, right, yeah.
Things like that, which do happen, right? Especially to try and when they're kind of stymied, I imagine it happens because they're stymied on a particular mode of production to get to those solutions, and they end up asking the public at large.
And even just the diegesis of the game so far, where you've got this guy who's sort of like in a Fox Mulder kind of position at FBI, and even his boss is like throwing him problems, but they're to do with his crosswords or whatever. And
Right.
This is his big attempt. But then, of course, I was also thinking about that he's in a small Minnesota village, right, in the field, population about 700. So in a way, it's it has a lot of the rings of an ethnographic as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Where he's struggling with the natives.
Mm-hmm.
He's filling in a notepad as he goes.
Here, dollars spent.
I think this is optional, actually. We could quit this one and go to another
Oh,
puzzle.
come on. Can do it.
It's another
What are we talking about here?
interesting part about puzzles, isn't it? Do you want to go
All right, Ati's giving a shot. I think the upper right one should be rotated. Very far to the right. I think you should start with the upper right corner and
Because this happens a lot when you have optional puzzles. They're zero sum, right? There's a right or wrong answer.
right.
But they're optional in terms of the narrative of the game. Is that people still, like, for example, now it's like, well, we have to the puzzle.
Yeah.
Well, that's that thing, right? About how games they have that power to command attention.
Yeah,
They're
well,
compelling.
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean it's. I mean, you sort of get into a.
I think start with that one like that. Whoop. Go back. Yeah, with the thing on the bottom, with the open on the bottom. Yeah, there we go. Does that help?
Yeah.
Keep going with it. Maybe not. No, because that doesn't work with the middle one. Fashion.
Yeah, because
That one has something on every.
Yeah,
side.
you have to connect that to something else now.
All right.
Also, what's interesting is the cultural construction of how men approach a puzzle is the same in a game like this. And for example, when a tech thing isn't working at somebody's house, it's like, well, let me have a look at it. Have you done this?
There is, in fact, my honor. I'm teaching a course in the honors college this semester, a seminar on American masculinity, And we're reading this anthropologist's book about it. We're reading Carly Kukurik's Coin-Operated Americans, but we're also reading 3 memoirs from different American masculinities, including the trans professional boxer Thomas B. Ta-Nehisi Coates' Beautiful Struggle. But we started with Jared Yates' Sex, the man they